So next, we're going to hear from ICANN, Fadi Chehade, whose name everyone in our team loves to say. So I hope that's not a wrong thing to say, but we love saying the word Fadi, the name Fadi Chehade, and he's got a very well-branded name to be CEO of ICANN, which is an incredibly important organization, has been doing a major part of governance of the internet, but as a US-dominated organization, it's now essentially going through a massive transformation where the governance of the entire internet is really in flux, which is what we're going to hear about, and we're especially excited that Fadi is going to be interviewed by Barton Gellman, who, as you all know, is a legendary journalist and has a lot of strong opinions about freedom of speech and the future of the internet. So, Barton, take it away.
Thank you, David. It's good to see you again. How you been?
Thanks for doing this, Fadi. We have only 15 minutes, so we got a lot of problems to solve in that space. We talked backstage about something, about the impact that the NSA disclosures had, both on your work and on you personally. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, certainly the NSA revelations have changed completely the interest of the global political class in looking at who governs the internet. I remember going to Brasilia to meet President Rousseff literally after her speech at the UN, and she told me, I could not believe this was happening to me, and I now need to pay attention.
This being that her own phone was being surveilled, yeah.
This was not the case right before the revelations. You did not have the political class all focused on who's doing what on the internet. Frankly, I know that the President of Mexico asked his cabinet this question. Right after the revelations, he said, who runs the internet in Mexico? And he said, well, we kind of don't know. We don't know who runs the internet in Mexico. We have bandwidth, but that's about it. So the questions in the political class have raised the interest. And frankly, I'll sum it up in one comment I got from the vice president of a big South American country. He said, Fadi, let me be clear. The internet is very powerful. We like power. We're going to take care of that. And at least he was the straight, honest one. He was telling me exactly what the political class is thinking. Now, personally, you asked me, I grew up in a minority, in a country where freedoms were not always at hand, like here.
Lebanon under Syrian influence.
Lebanon under Syrian influence in the 70s and 80s. And frankly, it were informants in the villages that got a lot of my own colleagues killed or tortured. I moved to the West largely because I wanted to enjoy these freedoms. And I brought my whole family here and my parents. Frankly, after the Snowden revelations, personally, I felt that there was a bit of a betrayal, that the ideals we all came to enjoy here were being betrayed. So this is why I'm applying myself to this issue now.
Interesting. The comments of your anonymous vice president, I love that you have an anonymous source here. Your anonymous vice president, under truth serum would be made by many, many government officials and many companies as well. Internet was this ungoverned, decentralized, free space, and increasingly has come under the influence of powerful actors. What are the threats to the model you're trying to promote, and what are you doing about them?
The internet is...
name names here.
Well, the internet is challenging every power structure that exists today in the nation-state Westphalian model. It is challenging it, and they don't know what to do. Hollande in France 3 weeks ago ordered the shutdown of a number of sites that were inciting French citizens to join ISIS. He had no clue what it meant to do that. The folks in Orange and in the various companies that were asked to shut these sites were stunned by his decree and did not understand legally how to do that. So takedowns and encroachment by government is happening because they're challenged. They really don't know what to do. I was in Turkey and I met the Minister of Telecommunications, who's getting every month 500 court orders to shut sites, because any citizen in Turkey can walk to a judge and say, show a site on a website, on an iPad, and say, this is offensive to me. And the judge gives them a court order to shut it. Of course, they go to the Minister of Telecommunications and say, shut the site. The guy says, well, most of these sites are not in Turkey. So they hired a New York lawyer to help them shut these sites. Millions of dollars later, they realized that they turn them off here, they start again the next hour in another place. They're challenged. They don't know what to do. So the extreme is shut down Twitter, shut down Facebook. And then they quickly realized this doesn't work. One minister in that part of the world told me, my own 12-year-old came up to me and said, Dad, the whole school hates me now because you shut down one of these services. You can't do that. This doesn't work.
But that's in a sense a fake threat. I mean, that's incompetent people who don't understand what they're asking for. What are the real
But there are
threats?
many of them, Barton. There are many people in government who don't know what to do. And they're doing, frankly, incompetent things. And it's breaking our
distributed power, I mean, was it Barlow who said the internet interprets censorship as a defect and routes around it? So that is not a threat to global openness. What is? I mean, what could go wrong with this TLD expansion you're doing?
So several things could go wrong. First, we could have serious internet fragmentation at the policy level. And that means every time the internet crosses a jurisdictional border, you have different policies to apply. We have not seen the beginning of this yet, but it's starting. We're seeing ministers and regional areas starting to apply policies on child protection on the internet that are completely incongruent with the next country or the next region. It will start putting so many roadblocks on this highway we're all riding on that we haven't even thought about it yet. So this is a serious issue, policy fragmentation. The second issue that we're seeing is a movement towards more fragmented business internets, whereby businesses are starting to worry about the security issues. And so they're saying, I was with a very large ISP, the second largest in the world, and they told me, most businesses telling them, we want private internets. We want to start moving our entire customer base to a separate internet because it's costing us an enormous amount of money on security issues. So fragmentation at the ISP level is going to happen as well.
Why do we care? I mean, if someone has a more secure private internet, I mean, Google synchronizes data between its data centers on private fiber. What's wrong with that?
I think the more fragmentation happens across the world, especially if you have people like Merkel, after her phone was touched, saying, let's create a German internet. Then it took her 24 hours to realize this is not feasible, so she went to Paris. I was there that day, and she said to the French, why don't we create a European internet and separate ourselves? And the French, thankfully, said, no, we don't think that's a good project. I think fragmentation will start making our ability to render products and services around the world more difficult at the policy level and potentially at the ISP level. We don't see it yet because right now we're still all riding on an open, frankly, largely unencumbered internet structure. You asked me about the top level domains. You know, ICANN manages the root of the internet where we maintain the top level domains. This is how you resolve when you go to any URL, .com or .net or .whatever, we help the world resolve where to send that traffic. And that route is one of the last guarantees of one internet. If the route itself is split, we don't have one internet. We have hundreds of thousands of networks. And the pressure on ICANN on this issue is quite significant right now. In fact, there are countries that threaten me that they have their own route, and that if we do not make sure our route is open and transparent and not influenced by one government, and today our route is highly influenced by the US government, that they will set up their own routes. And
but does that mean that if I'm in that country and I type in
IBM.com,
I don't reach a different destination, I get there by a different path?
No, you will reach a different destination. If there is a different route, what guarantees that you always get to the right destination no matter how you get there is the single route, because we resolve always every address on the internet to a specific machine with an IP address. That's what we guarantee. If the route itself is split, if we have two routes, then you could type techonomy.com in Russia, but end up in some other place.
Which brings to mind the authentication mechanism. So what's your relationship with certificate authorities?
We have a very intense relationship with the certificate authorities, to say the least.
Is it a happy marriage?
Again, because we believe in a bottom-up open internet where we cooperate. We are all loosely coupled. It's very important. Even when I say to the root operators, I'm going to add a country. South Sudan was created as a country, so we had to add .ss, which happened to be their country top-level domain. Even ICANN cannot tell the root operators they must add .ss. Now, the good news is they always comply, but I have no legal authority over them to do that. The system works based on trust and a loosely coupled model that has worked very well for the last 16 years. Of course, if you're a government, what I just said does not sit very well with most people. That we actually run the internet, $4 trillion of it in the G20 economy now, based on loosely coupled, distributed relationships of trust with the certificate authorities, with the root operators, with all the players in the internet. And it works.
Well, the certificate authorities, or at least some of them, have been shown to be not trustworthy. So you can, if you have influence over a CA, you can buy a certificate that tells everybody inside your country that they've reached Gmail when they haven't.
Correct. And so we weed out, we find out who is playing these kinds of games, and we expose them. And frankly, when you expose people in this environment we're in this internet governance model that is open, transparent, I think the truth very quickly comes out, and the community acts. Our community is very alert.
So are you willing to come out and name names? I mean, to do a name and shame, or do you have to be too much of a diplomat for that?
It's not so much of a diplomat. It's a system of mutual, loosely coupled trust, and we go after people. My compliance department, unfortunately, has grown significantly. We now have a pretty significant number of people tracking things. Also, we cannot take a very legalistic view to these things. We also have to take a community view to these things. So, for example, ICANN is not responsible for what you put on a website. It's not my business. But some people say you should have some level of responsibility. If someone goes and buys something on the internet and maybe buys a drug and the drug hurts them, is this ICANN's responsibility because I happen to have authorized someone to give a website name to this person who then sold the drug that killed someone?
I'm pretty sure your answer would be no on that one.
My answer would be no, but if I say my answer is no because it's not my business versus say my answer is no, I'm not responsible for that. And I gave the analogy of having a very bad cab ride. Do you go and complain to the DMV because they gave a license plate to the fellow who leased the car to that cab company? Of course not. But does the DMV have a responsibility if someone says there was a crime that happened in that cab to say who owns that cab because they have a license plate and they can match that to an owner? Yes. So I do have some role to play. I don't think, and this is again back to my point about how governments are challenged, because in the internet there isn't a neck to choke.
Right.
It's such a highly distributed model that a bad cab ride has many players that need to cooperate to actually help stop this from happening again.
So you have a narrow slice of responsibility, and we're down to a minute. I'm sorry. You've moved towards something that would give you broader influence and address broader questions in Net Mondial. Talk about that.
Net Mondial, very important. I want to make sure I convey this to you. On Thursday, the World Economic Forum, ICANN, and the Brazilian multi-stakeholder body called CGI announced a joint initiative called Net Mondial. Find it at netmondial.org. It's the first initiative to bring us all together to start shaping how the internet will be governed in the future. It is our responsibility, each one of us who use the internet as users, as companies, as individuals, as investors, to participate in how the internet is governed. If we are not active, then someone else will step into that vacuum. ICANN is only on the technical side, but who's making policies on how privacy will be handled? Who's making policies on how children will be protected? Today, that vacuum is large. Net Mundial is trying to fill it. I urge you to please participate with ideas, with projects. It's a new effort to crowdsource governance of the internet. That's
Mondial.org, and we'll have to stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.